automotive products are very specialized, a few lines that we export. My memory serves correct, 80 to 85% of our automobile products, so this would put us in a very good strategic position.
I thank Madam Member. There will be 2 minutes and 20 seconds left for his questions and comments, the following question period, if he's available for that. Statements by members. Déclaration de député, l'honorable député de West Nova.
The Honourable Member for West Nova.
Speaker, West Nova is feeling the loss of an exceptional citizen. Unfortunately, James Lamb passed away on April 15th. Jimmy was a well-known pork producer and businessman throughout the Annapolis Valley, where he operated the Meadowbrook Meat Market with conviction of promoting local products and ensuring that his customers could have trust in the quality of the products he sold. Jimmy was a dedicated volunteer within the community he loved so much, contributing to the planning and construction of the Berwick Apple Dome and providing countless hours and resources to organizations such as the Berwick Rotary Club, the 4-H Club, the Baptist Church, and the Brigadoons Children's Camp. On behalf of my honourable colleagues and the people of West Nova, I would like to express my sincere condolences to Mr. Lamb's family and especially to his wife, Margie. The Annapolis Valley has lost a dear friend whose legacy will be remembered and cherished for many years to come. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, today I want to salute Bouchées Généreuses, a volunteer organization that helps to fight hunger among marginalized people in Quebec City. It offers frontline services by contributing food to people from all horizons. More specifically, the work of this organization is to help people in need by offering them all types of food, basic food commodities, and some human warmth. This organization stands out not only because of its noble action, but also because of the volunteers who are actively involved in the well-being of their fellow citizens. They devote time and energy to making it a success, and they also have a say in the strategic direction. 3 volunteer members sit on the board and report back decisions that affect the well-being of beneficiaries. It is an organization that's necessary for my riding, and I'm very proud to participate as a volunteer in it myself.
Preston Chesapeake.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to rise in the House today to congratulate 6 recent graduates from the Emergency Service Achievement Program from my riding of Sackville-Preston Chesapeake. Through the innovative partnership between the Government of Canada, the Halifax Regional Municipality Fire and Emergency Services, and the Sackville Volunteer Firefighters Association, youth in our region were offered the opportunity to gain practice, work experience practice in our community.
This program is an excellent example of initiatives undertaken by the Government of Canada to support young people, to help them learn the skills they need to do well in their area of professional interest.
I'd like to give a special thanks to Bernie Scott, the program coordinator, for his hard work and his dedication for these young students who have such bright futures. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, by 2050, 1/3 of Canada's population will be over the age of 60. We know that services will need to be vastly expanded and enhanced to address the growing demand of aging Canadians. We need to expand long-term care and radically improve home care. We need to support caregivers and ensure that seniors have access to affordable housing so they can retire with dignity and respect. This is especially true in my riding, where in communities like Qualicum Beach, the median age is 63 years old. That's why I'd like to showcase some amazing organizations in my riding. I'd like to congratulate the Glacier View Lodge in Courtenay, who is opening a new outdoor activity centre this Friday. We know how important it is to stay active, especially as we get a little bit older. I'd like to give special recognition to Bowser Senior Housing Society, who are celebrating 10 years as a charity offering invaluable services to the community. Canada needs a national senior strategy that supports organizations like these and ensures our golden years are truly rich and fulfilling. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Châteauguay-Lacolle. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my great pleasure to congratulate the 10 recipients of the Lieutenant Governor of Quebec's medal who live in Château-Lacolle. Jean-Pierre Blais from Napierville, Yvon Bouchard from Châteauguay, Audrey Cicire from École Sainte-Martine, Aline Chèvrefils from Châteauguay, Jay Durette from the Châteauguay Heritage College, Noémie Jacques from Louis-Philippe Paris School in Châteauguay, Odette Potty from Châteauguay, Jean-Guy Robert, Knights of Columbus Council St. Remy, Jeannot Saint-Onge, Châteauguay, and finally Olivier Versailles from the Napierville École Saint-Louis. This medal recognizes the commitment of volunteers, their determination, and the surpassing of oneself of Quebecers who are having a positive influence in their communities.
One of our proud award winners. Thank you, Mr. President.
Member for Calgary-Shepherd.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise to recognize Dr. Catherine J. Hanna of Calgary, who will be invested tomorrow into the Order of Canada for her efforts to promote the use of information technology to enhance nursing care in Canada and abroad. Dr. Hanna, a proud member of the nursing profession since 1965 and a pioneer in the field of nursing informatics in Canada, has published foundational works and created practical applications of information technology to improve the nursing practice and enhance healthcare. She was instrumental in the development of data standards that track the care of patients, which have allowed doctors and nurses to measure patient outcomes and which have provided governments with data to influence health policy. I was privileged to have hosted her, her family, and her two granddaughters, Alexis and Kinsley, for a visit of our Parliament this morning. On behalf of the residents of Calgary-Shepherd, I want to congratulate her on this outstanding personal achievement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to rise today to recognize the 27th Annual Vaughan Chamber of Commerce Business Achievement Awards, which celebrated the successes and contributions of exceptional businesses and their excellence in the City of Vaughan. The highlight of this year's gala was presenting the Philanthropic Business Person of the Year Award to Mario Cortolucci, founder of the Cortel Group. As an entrepreneur, philanthropist, and conservationist, Mario has not only built communities but also funded the Ontario Hunting and Fishing Heritage Centre, a variety of charities, and many sporting initiatives throughout Canada. Mr. Cortolucci is the recipient of the Order of Ontario and the Queen Elizabeth Golden Jubilee Medal. The City of Vaughan is home to over 11,000 businesses employing nearly 200,000 individuals. By connecting, serving, and empowering businesses through their three foundational pillars, voice, community, and culture, the VCC is an integral part of Vaughan's business community and a strong advocate for its continuing success. Please join me in congratulating both the Vaughan Chamber of Commerce and Mr. Mario Cortolucci for their inspiring achievements. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Mr. Speaker, May is Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Month. 100,000 people in Canada are living with MS, 12,000 in British Columbia alone. The disease's unpredictable nature can have a profound impact on a person's ability to maintain financial security and navigate both health and community support systems. It also affects their families, who come together to manage the realities of MS. The Multiple Sclerosis Society of Canada is optimistic we will see an end to MS because of the resources that continue to be invested in Canadian research. These resources are raised in part at many of the MS walks taking place across the country this month, like the one taking place in my riding of Kelowna Lake Country. I encourage members in this House and all Canadians to show their support by taking part in an MS walk in their community. Mr. Speaker, together we can end MS.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, on May 6th, the Quebec College of Physicians gave its Humanity Award to Dr. Marc Dauphin for his remarkable career in Quebec, Canada, and throughout the world, and for his contribution to combat medicine. A graduate of medicine at Laval University, he enrolled in the Army following his studies. In 2007, he did a tour at the American Hospital in Landstuhl, which is a stopover hospital for injured soldiers from Iraq and Afghanistan. When he came back to the country, he was appointed officer commanding of the Royal 3 Multinational Hospital in Kandahar. During that mission, he maintained a record for all times and all wars. For the survival rate of injured soldiers brought in alive, 97%. I, too, want to acknowledge his skills, his dedication to the service of his country.
North Burlington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 75 years after Lou Gehrig died from ALS, it is still a horrible disease with no cause, no cure, and no treatment. We've all been touched by our friend and colleague, the member for Ottawa-Vanier, as we witness the very real impact of ALS on a tireless parliamentarian. In Oakville, my friend and hero, Tim Robertson, has battled ALS for 12 years. Tim loves sports, the boss, his family, friends, and community. His daughter, Lindsay Henderson, organizer of the Halton Walk for ALS, says that when Tim was diagnosed, he could still do everything on his own. Now he can do almost nothing without help. On Monday, May 23rd, please join me as I walk and raise money with Tim's Titans at the Halt and Walk for ALS at Bronte Creek Provincial Park in my riding to raise funds to support Canadians with ALS and celebrate hope for a future without this devastating disease.
The Honourable Member for Avignon-Lamitis-Matane-Matapédia. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Canadians expect their government to offer them services quickly and of good quality, be it online, in person, or on the phone. According to Stats Can, too many Canadians are not receiving the level of service they expect. When someone loses his or her job through no fault of their own, they shouldn't have to wait weeks or months to get assistance or benefits under a program into which they paid when they worked. That's why we are taking steps and undertaking a national review to obtain feedback from key stakeholders and from the public on ways to improve services offered to EI recipients. Comments and suggestions that we receive will contribute greatly to guiding the department with respect to the best approach to improving services for EI recipients. We know that Canadians have something to say, and we're eager to listen to them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, since 2006, the TELUS Day of Giving has been a catalyst for bringing together local communities to make a difference. Tens of thousands of Canadians from every region have given their time to make their communities a better place to live, work, and play. On May 31st, members of Parliament and senators will be contributing to this amazing effort. We will be packing school supply kits for children in our ridings, including more than 400 kits for students who have been impacted by the unprecedented, devastating fires in the Fort McMurray area. This initiative reflects the generous spirit exhibited by so many Canadians across the country in support for wildfire evacuees. Last year, over 100 parliamentarians participated in this fun and worthwhile event, and more than 1,000 children in Canadian communities benefited. I would like to encourage all members of this House to join me in giving where we live by offering our hands and hearts to those in need.
The member for Orleans.
Mr. Speaker, in recognition of Yom Ha'atzmaut, Israeli Independence Day, I'd like to take this opportunity to celebrate the tremendous contributions of our Israeli friends and the Jewish communities, large and small, both here in Canada and around the world. Canada is proud to call Israel a partner and ally. We unite in our values and our understanding of democracy. As we celebrate Israel's vibrant culture and peoples, we also recognize the threat that Israelis continue to face in the form of terrorism, anti-Semitism, and hateful crimes. And we will always stand with them, proud and steadfast. Thank you.
The honourable member for Hamilton Mountain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Residents of Hamilton Mountain don't need a special panel to tell them their postal service has rapidly declined. The majority of complaints I receive from constituents is about problems with their mail delivery. Many of those complaints are about broken or frozen community mailboxes, stolen letters, and many times mail just not being delivered in a timely fashion. Hamilton Mountain residents also don't need a special panel to tell them the Prime Minister promised to restore home mail delivery during the election campaign. That promise can be seen on video. After the election, the Prime Minister said he only promised a moratorium on the previous government's plan. Now his minister says maybe 2 days, maybe 3 days, maybe nothing at all. Mr. Speaker, clearly the Liberals are very confused. The residents of Hamilton Mountain are not confused. They want their home door-to-door delivery back, and they want their quality of service restored. Do the right thing, keep your promises to Canadians, and restore door-to-door mail delivery at once.
The honourable member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, Saturday, May 14th marks the 8th year of incarceration for the 7 Iranian Baha'i leaders. Their only crime is their religion and their efforts to serve the spiritual and social needs of their fellow believers. The 7 Baha'is were arrested in 2008, held for more than a year, put on trial, and wrongfully convicted on charges of espionage and propaganda against the regime. They were initially sentenced to 20 years in prison, but in November 2015, that term of imprisonment was reduced to 10 years due to the delayed application of the new Iranian Penal Code. The 7 are now eligible for conditional release. The Baha'i international community is launching a global campaign calling for immediate release. The Baha'i leaders should never have been arrested in the first place, and their incarceration based exclusively on their religious beliefs is unjust, illegal, and immoral. I call on President Rouhani and the Iranian regime to follow rules of its own national laws, respect human rights, exercise clemency, and to immediately release the 7 imprisoned Baha'i leaders.
The honourable member for Vancouver Quadra.
Mr. Speaker, in recognition of Asian Heritage Month, I celebrate the contributions of Vancouver Quadra constituent Mr. King Wan. Mr. Wan's career includes serving as Naval Reservist, Senior Manager at Vancouver City Hall, Canadian Forces BC Liaison Officer, and Commanding Officer of the HMCS Discovery. The service and sacrifice of Canada's Chinese-Canadian Armed Force members in both world wars is a tale not told in our schools or our history books. In his role as president of the Chinese-Canadian Military Museum in Vancouver's Chinatown, Mr. Wan and his team preserve and exhibit the story of these brave Chinese-Canadian veterans and their service to Canada, a country that had yet to grant them the right to vote. Through his distinguished career and lifetime of community leadership, Mr. Wan is a shining example of why we are proud to celebrate Asian Heritage Month every May.
Hear, hear.
Questions orales, oral questions. The honourable member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Canadians are fair-minded people, and that's why they know it's wrong for one political party to seek to impose an electoral system on this Parliament and our entire country over the objections of other parties and the majority of Canadians. Now, the Liberal governments in BC, Ontario, and PEI all understood this, which is why they held referenda on electoral reform. Mr. Speaker, why does this Liberal government have so much less confidence in the common sense of Canadians? Why won't this Liberal government follow the provincial precedent of a referendum on electoral reform?
The Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the honourable member's desire to hear from Canadians, but I've yet to hear from him or his colleagues on how a referendum could help us hear from those who don't traditionally engage in the democratic process, like young people, women, Indigenous persons, those with disabilities and exceptionalities, those living in the remote and rural regions of this country. We need to ensure that we use
Order. We want to hear the answer. The Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
We need to ensure that the tools we use to hear from Canadians are in line with the 21st century's needs and the possibilities to make sure that all Canadians across this great nation are included in this important conversation.
The member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Well, Mr. Speaker, their excuses for trying to rig the system are getting more and more ridiculous and transparent with that answer. Mr. Speaker, she's talking about a fake consultation process that interest groups will be involved in, maybe a few thousand people. We want the ultimate consultation that allows tens of millions of Canadians to decide how they elect their representatives. Why is this Liberal government so determined to be the first government of a major democracy to change the electoral system without a direct popular mandate expressed in a referendum?
Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, while the premise of the argument that my honourable colleague brings forward is false, I will go on to bring this forward. Yesterday, the first day that we brought forward the conversation on electoral reform, the hashtag electoral reform on Twitter alone garnered nearly 12 million impressions in one day. This is the 21st century way, and we will ensure that all voices who don't traditionally engage are included in this conversation.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Apparently she wants decisions to be made by Twitter. We want decisions to be made by the people, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, Parliament does not belong to politicians. Parliament belongs but does not belong to the Liberal Party. Parliament belongs to the Canadian people. Why not allow the Canadian people to make this decision, not the politicians?
The Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions. Order. Order. Order.
Mr. Speaker, change and much-needed reform require leadership and vision. Our government has a vision for a healthier democracy, and there is no lack of leadership on this side of the aisle. It is my hope that all members of this House will share in this leadership and help bring our electoral system into the 21st century.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Etchemins-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, when the Liberals have problems, we know their solution: a committee. Problems with Canada Post? A committee. Problems with defence? A committee. Problems with free trade? A committee.
Less.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Etchemins-Lévis has the floor. It's up to him to speak, and only him right now. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, why not involve people in changes to democratic reform? Is the minister ready to consult with Canadians with a referendum on democratic reform, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions. Order.
Mr. Speaker, listening to Canadians is at the heart of a healthy democracy. And we are committed to ensuring that young people, new Canadians, Indigenous persons, those with disabilities and exceptionalities, seniors, those living in the rural and remote regions of our country have a meaningful opportunity to engage in this process.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Etchemins-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, isn't it ironic? This Liberal government has gone off the rails. We've gone from sunny ways to a total eclipse of democracy. First, the Liberals gave themselves absolute control of a committee. Next, they'll change the rules of democracy unilaterally without Canadians. We've gone from the familiar friendly Liberal dictatorship to a full consultocracy. Mr. Speaker, is the minister using partisan smoke and mirrors to trick the Canadian population?
Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to remind all members of this House that no changes or reforms have yet been presented to this House. Yesterday, we announced the first step towards hearing from Canadians about how to bring their democracy into the 21st century. We have begun the first step, and that includes listening to Canadians across 338 ridings and making a thoughtful and evidence-based approach, evidence-based decision that way.
Okay, that's enough. That's enough. That's enough.
The Honourable Member for Hochelaga. Mr. Speaker, this makes no sense. The Liberals say that they want real democratic reform, but they have the majority on the committee. They've invited the Green and the Bloc parties, but they don't have the right to vote. How can they claim that the fix isn't in? This reform is off to a very bad start. Will the government recognize its mistake and give all parties the right to vote at committee?
Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, we took the leadership to ensure that non-recognized parties would be at the table. Under our proposal, members of the Bloc Québécois and the Green Party would be able to participate in developing the witness list, to question witnesses, to travel with the committee for hearings across the country, and have the opportunity to provide their input into the final report. Because, Mr. Speaker, the committee cannot do this work alone. It will require collaboration from all members of this House, and I look forward to the contributions of every single member and every single party represented in this House.
Honourable Member for Hochelaga.
Mr.
Speaker, if the Liberals were really willing to work with the opposition, they wouldn't be ramming bills through the House and giving themselves false majorities on a committee. How can they claim they want to end first past the post and then strike a committee that models itself on first past the post? We're talking about a once-in-a-generation voting reform. Will the minister reconsider her decision to give Liberals the power to unilaterally change our voting system?
The Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, this is indeed a historic opportunity for all of us to go out of our way to engage those Canadians who don't traditionally engage in the democratic process. We're committed to creating a new electoral system that produces a parliament that Canadians can be confident in, one that ensures their voices are heard and represented in this House, and we all share this ideal in this House, and I look forward to the contributions of all members towards that end.
The Honourable Member for Laurier Sainte Marie. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government's explanations about the arms sale to Saudi Arabia are really troubling. We have a video which clearly shows the kind of armoured vehicles that we're selling to Saudi Arabia being used right now to crush the civilian population. And what's the answer from the minister? Well, these aren't Canadian armoured vehicles. That's not particularly convincing. He also says that there are risks to this contract, but that it's a calculated risk. Can the minister tell us how many civilians will have to be killed before he recalculates? What's his number? Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, the only party that hasn't changed its tune here is the Liberal Party. The NDP promised to respect the contract to win a seat, and now that they're elected, they're telling the same families who will live because of the jobs from this contract that we should cancel it. They don't want us to sign the export permits. This is an export permit for a vehicle produced in Canada, and we have no evidence, no proof that it was misused, even if it has been sailed by Canada since 1993, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Laurier Sainte Marie.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Foreign Affairs said that he would cancel the export permits of military equipment to Saudi Arabia if there were new revelations of human rights abuses. Right. But yesterday, the Prime Minister basically said there will be no cancellation. Mr. Speaker, this is about human rights. That's right. This is about Canada's international commitments. Right. So the question is simple. Who should Canadians believe?
Foreign Affairs.
The government of Canada and the Prime Minister. C'est another party that switches view after the election, after committing other things before the election. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister asked me to make sure that the power that the Minister of Foreign Affairs has to block the export permit if an equipment built in Canada is wrongly used regarding human rights or national interest of Canada and its allies, to use this power with a lot of rigor and transparency, and it's what I will do.
Excellent. The Honourable Member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today's National Post says the government's committee process is no mandate for electoral reform. The Toronto Star's headline is, "Let the people vote." Right. The media agree there should be a referendum to approve any change to the voting system. And the people also agree. Polls say that 2/3 believe there should be a referendum. Right. So why doesn't the Prime Minister agree with Canadians? Why does he refuse to hold a referendum?
Democratic institutions.
Mr. Speaker, an independent and constructive media is critical to the success and the health of our democracy. However, this particular reform process is about engaging those who do not have a platform to share their thoughts, their needs, and their aspirations, including young people, Indigenous persons, women, those with disabilities and exceptionalities, new Canadians, those living in the rural and remote regions of our country, and those of more humble socioeconomic backgrounds. That's the inclusive approach that Canadians expect from us. That is what we will deliver.
The Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Mr. Speaker, after 16 years on Parliament Hill, I can tell you that there is no place you are less likely to find a Canadian with exceptionality, a disabled Canadian, a minority, a disenfranchised person than at a parliamentary committee. The government, Mr. Speaker, has articulated two contradictory positions on changing the voting system. The Prime Minister's tiresome, oft-repeated line is that the 2015 election will be the last one ever fought under first past the post. That must mean no to a referendum under any circumstances. Yet his ministers say that a referendum is a legitimate option. Which of these two positions actually reflects government policy? Will there be a referendum or will there not?
Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, I share, I hope, with all these members of this House, a great deal of respect for the work of committees in this place. This committee will be shaped by an important set of broad-based principles that include pursuing an effective and legitimate voting system which more accurately reflects Canadians' electoral wishes, a system that better engages all Canadians, one that fosters civility, consensus building, cohesion, an accessible system, one with integrity, and one that enhances the connection between representatives and their constituents.
Now, member for Mayor Airdrie.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are once again flip-flopping so much that they can't even keep the same talking points together for a whole press conference. On the one hand, the Liberal House Leader stated that all options are possible when asked if maintaining the current system was on the table, but then a mere minute later he stated that 2015 was the last first-past-the-post election. Flip-flop. Maybe they can make us clear on one thing, Mr. Speaker. Will the Liberals commit to giving each and every Canadian a direct say through a referendum?
Honourable Minister of the Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, we have arrived in this place after the longest federal election in modern Canadian history, during which we were rather clear about our intention to reform our electoral system. So allow me to be clear for my honourable members. 2015 was the last federal election conducted under the first-past-the-post system. It's time for a 21st century model of electing individuals to this House. That's what we promise. That's what we deliver upon.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's time to remind Canadians that they are in charge. Exactly. That's what the Minister of Democratic Institutions claimed yesterday. But their actions don't match their words. All decisions on electoral reform will be made by 6 Liberals who form the majority on the committee. And the Minister also stated the ultimate decision on what system is proposed will be made by Cabinet, not by Canadians. How can the Liberals claim that Canadians are in charge when the Prime Minister won't even trust them with the opportunity for a referendum?
Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, on the one hand, the members opposite ridicule the idea of listening to Canadians. On the other hand, they criticize us for not listening to Canadians. So let me make this clear. The first point of contact for all of us will be hearing from those Canadians who don't normally engage in the democratic process, those who have often been marginalized, and a healthy democracy is one that includes their voices. Yes. The final decision will be made by members of this House, yes, as well as those in the other place.
Yes. Another member for Calgary-Shepherd.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday we learned the Liberal plan to change our democracy. And what was the Liberals' first act? Well, they're creating a committee with a Liberal majority. When it comes to changing the rules of democracy, the only majority that counts is a majority of Canadians. Mr. Speaker, why not just commit to consulting all Canadians through a referendum?
Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, we are committed to hearing from all Canadians across all 338 ridings across this great nation. We are relying upon a collaborative approach of every single member of this House to ensure that the voices of those constituents in their ridings who don't normally get heard, who don't normally have a platform, is included and recognized in this important dialogue prior to arriving at a final conclusion.
Member for Calgary.
Well, repetition is not an answer, Mr. Speaker. When we see the committee with a Liberal majority and the government's obstinate refusal to really consult Canadians, well, it leads us to ask, what is their true motive? It should be simple. Several provinces, Ontario, BC, and PEI have held referendums to legitimize the process. Will the Liberals have the courage of their convictions, and will they today, here in the House, commit to holding a pan-Canadian referendum on electoral reform?
Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, our motivation with this whole process is to ensure that
most members on all sides are able to listen to questions and answers that are often provocative without reacting. Let's have the rest do it too. The Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, democratic reform is about ensuring that all voices are heard in this House. It's about ways that we can work together to ensure that we deliver the best government and the best governance to the people who brought us here. I look forward to working with all members of this House towards that common goal.
The Honourable Member for Desnething, Missinippi, Churchill River.
Mr. Speaker, almost 4 months since the shooting in La Loche, and Liberals are still not providing mental health care workers in my riding and many other communities. The government's budget allocated $0 additional dollars for mental health care despite the urgent need. What about La Loche? What about Cross Lake? Will the government finally ensure that all First Nations communities are able to access the support they need and deserve? Thank you.
Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for her question, and in fact I would say to the honourable member that I believe that all Canadians, Indigenous or otherwise, need to have access to the mental health care that is necessary, and this is a responsibility of all of us. In terms of Indigenous communities, I'm pleased to inform the member that I am in conversations with my officials and the First Nations Inuit Health Branch on a daily basis about how we can increase access to mental health services in communities like La Loche and Cross Lake. We are working towards a plan to be able to enhance those services, and I will be pleased to report our progress at a further date.
Simmons, James Bay.
Mr. Speaker, Health Canada officials have confirmed that no money was set aside to implement Jordan's principle. Now, this flies in the face of 2 rulings by the Human Rights Tribunal that ordered immediate action to end the systemic discrimination against Indigenous children. So the government ignored the ruling with their budget, and now they've ignored the deadline with the new estimates, which show no money to close the funding gap for child welfare and 0 for Jordan's principle. So what part of the word immediate do they not understand? I mean, with $30 billion in extra spending, and they couldn't find a dime to help children who are still being denied their rights?
Shame. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We know that Child and Family Services on reserve must be overhauled, and we have started working towards that process. We are investing money into Child and Family Services, and we are doing it across the board through various departments of government. Mr. Speaker, our initiatives this year have provided $600 million and more to over 5 years to be invested in children and families on reserve, and we're going to continue to do that because we know it's necessary, we know it's needed, and we're committed to it.
The honourable member for Grand Prairie Mackenzie.
Yesterday, the Ag Minister defended his Chief of Staff, saying that he wanted somebody with agricultural experience. Now, his Chief of Staff has a very specific experience, that of owning a multi-million-dollar ag empire. But that is the very experience that the Conflict of Interest Commissioner has specifically forbidden her from speaking about. If she can't talk about the explicit experience that the minister said qualified her for the job, why is she still on the payroll?
Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's unfortunate my honourable colleague across the way cannot focus on agricultural issues, but I'll assure you we can. And, Mr. Speaker, I can assure my honourable colleague in this House that my Chief of Staff has completed all the requirements of the Conflict of Interest Commissioner and will be abiding by all guidelines set forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Grand Prairie Mackenzie.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that's exactly the question. Now, it wasn't only the minister that thought that it was the Chief of Staff's experience that qualified her for the job. It was also her understanding as well. As a matter of fact, she said, my background through my family business is pretty relevant to the portfolio. So I think that's partly why I got the job. Now, Mr. Speaker, I'd ask the minister, why is she still on the payroll if the qualifications that made her qualified for the job are the things that she can't speak about?
Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, my honourable colleague thinks the only requirement to work for the Department of Agriculture and the Minister of Agriculture is to have no experience in agriculture. I'm sorry, we disagree with that. But as he indicated quite clearly, that my Chief of Staff has completed all the requirements of the Conflict of Interest Commissioner. and is willing to and will abide by all guidelines set forward. It couldn't be clearer, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the issue isn't Ms. McFall's knowledge of the industry. It's in fact that she practically owns the industry. So she even claimed, and I quote like my colleague did, my family's business is pretty relevant to this portfolio. So I think that's part of how I got the job. So she got the job because of her family and her company, and apparently the minister, in all due respect, didn't see the conflict. But, Mr. Speaker, I have to ask the minister, why hire a chief of staff that has such a direct conflict of interest?
Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
All I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, and my honourable colleague, is that my Chief of Staff has completed all the requirements of the Conflict of Interest Commission and be willing to abide by all guidelines set forward. Also, Mr. Speaker, this includes...
Order, 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 order. I'm going to ask the member for Abbotsford and others to settle down and listen to the answers. After all, they don't want to be invisible to the Speaker when they'd like to speak. The Honourable Minister of Agriculture has the floor. Let's listen.
I'm not really sure, Mr. Speaker, where you cut me off, but the fact of the matter is that my Chief of Staff is an outstanding member of her community and has a deep commitment to agriculture, Mr. Speaker. Let's not have it that if you know something about agriculture...
It's always great to have help.
The honourable member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner has come down very hard on the Chief of Staff to the Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food. She cannot participate in any discussions about the ag sector, and yet this sector is a part of important files like supply management and the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Mr. Speaker, why does the minister insist on keeping his chief of staff when her hands are tied by her private interests?
The Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, I can tell you my Chief of Staff is an outstanding member of the community and has a good understanding of agriculture. And on the issue that my honourable colleague raises, my Chief of Staff has completed all the requirements of the Conflict of Interest Commissioner and will be abiding by all the guidelines set forward. Couldn't be clearer, Mr. Speaker. I'm lucky to have this lady.
The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker. Earlier this week, the Minister of Heritage was pleased to remind us of her investments in the cultural sector. And in fact, in the budget, there were $78 million for the NFB, Telefilm, and the CBC this year. In fact, we'll continue. Okay, a little surprise. When we looked at the supplementary estimates this week, the money isn't there. There is none. Was the Minister of Heritage hoodwinked by Treasury Board, or will she find some way of telling the cultural sector that they will have to wait again? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm happy that my honourable critic in the House here reminds everyone of the investments in culture. That's important. I haven't seen this kind of investment in 30 years. So I'm working right now with my colleague at Treasury Board to indeed ensure that those funds are sent to the organizations in question. The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. No, they're not. Well, they're not there, but maybe they're somewhere. I don't know. The 40 Quebec Liberal members are again asleep at the switch. Right now, the Quebec government has made a proposal for the Senate, and they've been treated like garbage. The people of Lac-Mégantic finally have a study in hand to build a bypass rail line and finally put this horrendous tragedy behind them. But rather than listening to them, the minister's giving them a geography lesson. Will the 40 Liberal MPs from Quebec stop being pathetic pawns and stand up for the people of Lac-Mégantic, the Honourable Minister of Transport. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And of course, we're very proud of the 40 Liberal members from Quebec. And of course, our thoughts are with the people of Lac-Mégantic who are still recovering from this horrible tragedy. I can assure you, I was there 2 weeks ago, that we are there with them. We've made more than 100 inspections in the region since 2013. We've put money in the budget for rail safety, and we have overseen phases 1 and 2 of the bypass rail line construction. And
Mr. Speaker, partisan advertising has no place in government. Canadian taxpayers shouldn't be footing the bill for government ads that advance the political interests of any party in power. They should be able to trust that government advertising is legitimate, purposeful and informative. When I was in opposition, I tabled a bill to put an end to partisan government advertising. It was opposed by the previous Conservative government. Can this government, our government, inform the House what action it is taking to end partisan government advertising and enhance public trust?
Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Speaker, I thank the member for Ottawa South for his leadership on this issue. Today, we're delivering on our commitment to end the partisan use of government advertising. We're introducing third-party oversight of government ads with a new definition of non-partisan communications, no more ads for government programs not yet approved by Parliament or within 90 days of a set election date. We will work with Parliament, the Auditor General and stakeholders to entrench third-party oversight and legislation and make sure that partisan government advertising is a thing of the past.
The Honourable... Okay. The member for Abbotsford.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has claimed time and again that he's a big supporter of international trade. But much like the NDP, every time the Liberals are asked to walk the talk, they're missing in action. The TPP is the largest trade agreement in the world. Conservatives concluded negotiations over 7 months ago, yet the Prime Minister won't tell us whether he will support the agreement. Canada must be a leader, not a laggard on trade. When will the Prime Minister finally tell Canadians whether or not he supports the TPP?
Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, we were very clear during the election that we support trade, and we were also very clear that the TPP, which was negotiated in secret during the campaign, required broad national consultation. We promised that, and we're keeping our promise. The Trade Committee this week is traveling the country to listen to Canadians. They're in Windsor today. They'll be in Toronto tomorrow. They were in Montreal and Quebec City earlier this week. I'd also like to remind the honourable member that none of the 12 TPP countries has yet ratified this agreement, and we all have 2 years for an open, productive debate.
Abbotsford.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as a globe-trotting trade minister embarrassed herself on American late-night talk shows at taxpayers' expense, Canada's trade performance was floundering. In March, exports plummeted by almost 5%, and Canada suffered a record-setting $3.4 billion trade deficit. Now, with that kind of a performance, Canadians would be better off if the minister simply stayed at home. There is, however, one thing she can do to improve Canada's trade performance, and that's to support the largest trade agreement in the world. Will the Liberals now support the TPP?
Honourable Minister of International Trade.
I would like to remind the honourable member that, in fact, in the first quarter of 2016, our exports were $1.2 billion higher than they were during the same period. But we're reaching further. We are fighting protectionism as we did successfully with COOL, something again not achieved under his watch. And we are opening up new markets with CETA, whose legal scrub has now been completed. That agreement will be signed this year, not done under his...
Member for Red Deer Lacombe.
Mr. Speaker, last week we learned the Prime Minister took 44 handpicked people to Washington for the state dinner. They claim it had a total cost of $25,000, but Mr. Speaker, no one believes this cost to be true. We know this because it cost $13,000 for 3 ministers and 2 staff alone. So, Will the Liberals finally come clean and tell taxpayers how much it costs for their 5-star Washington vacation?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, my colleague knows very well that all the expenses associated with all these international trips are disclosed proactively every quarter. He's aware of that. What he also knows, Mr. Speaker, is that this was a historic visit to our most important trading partner. This was a visit where important agreements were signed for things as important to Canadians and Canadian businesses as pre-clearance. Agreements on energy, discussions around how we can grow the most comprehensive and expansive trading relationship in the world, Mr. Speaker. Every dollar spent on that trip was worth it for Canadians.
Louis Saint Laurent. Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, can we know how much this cost taxpayers this trip? Because from the outset, they've been telling us that it's 44 people and it cost $25,000. But yesterday, TVA said that it cost $13,000 for 5 people. It doesn't add up. Did they put people into their luggage? Now, I don't know if the honourable member is aware, I'm sure, that he should be directing his comments to the chair. You have to respect your responsibilities, yes. Could the government finally give us the straight facts? How many people were on the trip and how much did it cost? Because the $25,000, it's really taking Canadians for fools. The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, I have had the privilege many times of giving the straight facts on this trip. It was a historic trip, as I said from the outset, the first time since 1997 that Canada was welcomed at a state dinner at the White House, and it was a visit where several ministers from our government met with not only their counterparts from the United States, but also members of civil society and from American legislatures. And at the same time, we delivered the goods for Canadians when we're talking about international trade, the environment, and energy.
Mr. Speaker, the government's inadequate changes to EI left 800,000 Canadians behind, and many regions were left out of extended benefits despite rising unemployment. Today, we find out from internal documents that workers in Edmonton, southern Saskatchewan, and the BC interior could apply. This is a positive step, but the government is still leaving so many Canadians out in the cold. This is about justice. It is about making sure that Canadians can access the EI fund that belongs to them. So will the government step up and show leadership to fix EI for Canadian workers?
The honourable comment to Secretary for Employment.
Mr. Speaker, certainly this government has shown leadership. It stepped up decisively and quickly to respond to that sharp, sustained, sudden shock to the unemployment rate in those 12 regions. And, Mr. Speaker, with regard to the most recent numbers that we've received from StatsCan that have been impacted by the commodity downturn, but also by the fires in Fort McMurray, we are analyzing those. The minister is looking at them with her staff and will be responding appropriately.
Burnaby South.
Mr. Speaker, earlier this week I asked the Minister of Democratic Institutions if she supports the Candidate Gender Equity Act. She said, quote, "We will study it on its merits when it is debated in the House." Yet yesterday, CTV acquired a leaked memo from the minister's office that confirmed Liberals were already planning to oppose the bill when she made this statement. Will the minister explain to Canadians why she didn't give them a straight answer on Tuesday and why she is forcing Liberal MPs to oppose a bill aimed at bringing gender equality to the House of Commons? Thank you.
Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
This process with an open mind, and I certainly understand the challenges that women face in politics. While I congratulate my honourable colleague for his contribution to this important dialogue, this specific initiative is not the best way forward. As we look to evolve our democratic institutions, we will seek ways to encourage the inclusion of women, persons of other genders, and all individuals who are currently underrepresented to be represented in politics. This will be a free vote, Mr. Speaker.
Right. Caribou Prince George.
Mr. Speaker, talk about power going to somebody's head. Mr. Speaker, witness after witness at the Trade Committee last week agreed that the upcoming presidential election poses a threat to our new softwood lumber agreement. We don't have an agreement, and it's creating all kinds of uncertainty. Canadian job creators need certainty in order to run their businesses successfully. Tick, tick, tick. Why are the Liberals standing by and doing nothing on softwood lumber while the clock ticks down?
Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to start by reminding the honourable member that it was his government that left Canadians without a softwood lumber agreement. The previous agreement expired on his government's watch. We are very aware of the importance of this issue. We have focused on it from day one. We raised this during our state dinner at the White House. We raised it at the highest levels. I am working closely with the USTR and with the industry. We will get this done.
Member for Caribou, Prince George.
Mr. Speaker, it was this government that put the end to the longest and most costly trade disagreement in history. This government with the softwood lumber agreement. Mr. Speaker, the United States is Canada's largest market for softwood lumber. There are hundreds of thousands of jobs on the line, yet the Liberals would rather spend his time coming up with ways to stall the Trans-Pacific Partnership because they're incapable of making good business decisions that are in the interest of Canadian jobs. Will the Trade Minister stand up and commit to bringing home a signed agreement before November?
Minister of Trade.
Mr. Speaker, we are absolutely seized of the issue of softwood lumber. I am working very, very hard on this issue with my officials, with our ambassador to the United States, with the industry. I'd like to urge the honourable member to have a coffee with the member for Abbotsford, who will point out there is no connection between the softwood lumber agreement and the TPP. And I do also want to say we are negotiating for a good deal, but not just any deal. We'll get a good deal for Canadian producers.
The honourable member for Montagny, Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup. Mr. Speaker, the forest industry is struggling. Major factors like the renewal of the softwood lumber agreement with the United States and job losses are casting uncertainty over the industry that represents at least $20 billion for the Canadian economy. Mr. Speaker, all the regions of Quebec and Canada would be affected if the agreement is not renewed, particularly mine in the Lower St. Lawrence. How can the minister take so much time to finalize an agreement that's so important for our country and for all regions of Quebec? The Honourable Minister of International Trade. Mr. Speaker, our government and myself recognize the importance of the forestry industry for Quebec and for Canada. This is why I am in regular contact with my American counterpart on this issue. We are working hard to find the major elements that will allow us to deal with this issue, and our goal is to have stable access to the American access for our industry. The Honourable Member for Madawaska-Restigouche. Mr. Speaker, as you know, Canadians are often at Service Canada offices when they must do business with the government. In my riding, the people have long complained about the service and the delays they're facing when they apply for essential programs such as employment insurance. Can the Minister for Families, Children and Social Development inform this House about the initiatives that he's undertaking to decrease wait times? The Honourable Minister.
Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I also thank the member for Madawaska-Restigouche for his important question and his efforts on behalf of the unemployed in Canada. We are undertaking national consultations on EI, and I thank my parliamentary secretary and the parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Labour, as well as the member for La Matapédia for what they're doing and will be doing over the next few weeks. The comments and suggestions received will serve Service Canada to help them improve service to those using them and to the unemployed.
Mr. Speaker, in a letter to the Prime Minister, the Calgary Board of Education indicated that they have spent millions to accommodate the needs of Syrian refugee students. Many of these students have complex learning needs, including overcoming severe language barriers. Alberta is facing difficult times right now, and the school board is already running a deficit. They expect that they're going to have difficulty providing ongoing support for these students. Why is the government offloading costs for their Syrian refugee initiative onto local school boards?
Now the Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I would question the premise of that question, but we will certainly look into it. I think on the whole, We have had great success working with provincial governments on their refugees. I can tell the honourable member that as of today, 98% of the refugees are in permanent housing. And I think I'm about to run out of time, but thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Kootenay, Columbia.
Mr. Speaker, Budget 2016 included $65.9 million for a so-called world-class biking and walking trail through Jasper National Park. This came out of nowhere, yet this Liberal government refuses to give any details. The minister has not consulted the public or stakeholders in spite of Liberal election promises that they'd be open and transparent. A project of this scale needs a robust public environmental assessment process prior to any decision being made. Why is this government following the Conservatives' lead, ignoring transparency and putting the ecological integrity of a treasured national park at risk?
The Honourable Minister of Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Parks Canada places belong to all Canadians. We are committed to the ecological integrity of our national parks. We are also committed to making investments that ensure that Canadians have the opportunity to enjoy our parks. This investment in Jasper National Park follows this principle, and we are very excited. In 2017, we were providing all Canadians free access to national parks, national heritage sites, and national marine conservation areas. I encourage everyone to come on out.
Member for Coastal Bay, Central Notre Dame.
Mr. Speaker, the legacy of residential schools has indeed left a stain on Canadian history. It was indeed a great moment when we achieved the residential schools settlement in 2008. However, survivors of residential schools in Newfoundland and Labrador were left out. So my question is for the Parliamentary Secretary, for the Minister of Northern Affairs, Indigenous Affairs, also the MP for Labrador. Can she inform this House what the government is doing towards reconciliation and healing for the survivors in Newfoundland and Labrador?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the honourable member for Coastal Bay, Central Notre Dame for his question, and to him and all my colleagues in the House of Commons for their support towards this issue. It has been a long-awaited move of reconciliation with residential school survivors in Newfoundland and Labrador. We're very pleased that this week the Government of Canada and the survivors of 5 Newfoundland and Labrador residential schools reached an agreement in the settlement of a class action suit. We are committed, Mr. Speaker, to moving past this sad and terrible chapter in our history, advancing reconciliation.
For Selkirk and Lake Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, today I was joined by Bill Browder, an outspoken critic of government corruption, to announce new legislation. Conservatives have tabled the Sergei Magnitsky law in both the House and the Senate. Sergei Magnitsky was wrongfully arrested, tortured, and killed in a Russian prison. Mr. Speaker, legislation and sanctions on corrupt foreign officials who violate human rights were supported by the 3 main parties during the last election. Will the Liberal government now stand against abusive foreign officials and support this legislation, Bill C-267?
Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, my colleague is completely right to say that what happened to Mr. Magnitsky is simply horrible. I note that we are able to stop the perpetrators of this crime with the current Immigration and Refugee Protection Act, because it's checking the eligibility at the border. So we have this capacity, and the committee will have to review very carefully the Special Economic Measures Act to address this kind of problem.
The honourable member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, when we toy with the democratic process, we customarily seek to obtain the broadest consensus possible. This government won 39% of the vote in the elections, but is appropriating 60% of the voting rights with this committee, which is indeed responsible for improving representation. If they want to improve democracy, they should start by looking at their own way of doing things. Mr. Speaker, does the Prime Minister want to reform democracy, or does he want to take control of it?
Democratic institutions.
Mr. Speaker, I believe all members in this House share an ideal and a goal to enhance our democratic institutions for us and for future generations. Although the Bloc Québécois and the Green Party do not have official party status and don't normally have a seat around the committee tables, we believe that it's important to have a representative from each party at the table to call witnesses, to travel, to provide input to the ultimate brief that we will receive, and we are looking forward to their meaningful and constructive engagement in this process.
The Honourable Member for Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, Saudi Arabia is using tanks against its own political dissidents. But according to the Minister of Global Affairs, it's not a problem because the available images don't show any Canadian tanks. If the Canadian tanks, as if they were being used to drive the children to school. Yesterday, the Prime Minister justified the arms sale to Saudi Arabia in saying that we need to protect Canada's business image. How many human rights is the Prime Minister ready to violate in the name of business? The Honourable Minister of Global Affairs. Mr. Speaker, I can assure you that we never will miss an opportunity to defend human rights when we are speaking to the Saudi Arabian government. We've had several opportunities to do that, and the reason why we've had several opportunities to do that is because we have relations with them. We'll not make the mistake that the Conservatives made, which is to cut links off connections with countries. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The minister has the power to use this, and the Canadian tanks should be used well and properly.
Capel will now rise for the usual Thursday question.
Mr. Speaker, I wonder if the Government House Leader can update the House as to what we'll be debating for the rest of this week and for the rest of next week as well.
Well, Government House Leader.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This afternoon we will continue study of the Conservative Party's motion. Tomorrow will be another opposition day. On Monday, we will begin study at report stage and third reading of Bill C-10 concerning Air Canada until 2 o'clock. After question period, we will go on to Bill C-14 concerning medical aid in dying.
And optimistic discussions with my colleague House leaders. I'm hopeful and optimistic that we'll have an agreement on the handling of the debate at report stage and third reading of Bill C-14 next week, provided we're able to complete, Mr. Speaker, debate on Bill C-14 next Wednesday. The House will debate an NDP opposition motion on Thursday. And finally,